Hi there, and welcome back to the Fuse Show. I'm one of your hosts, David Tran. I'm also the co-founder of Xfusion.io, and today I'm excited to be joined by one of my guests, Tim Williams. He's the founder and CEO of Index Engines, a data integrity solution provider based in New Jersey. Index Engines builds enterprise-class software for information governance, data management, compliance, eDiscovery, and cybersecurity markets. The company's software allows companies to manage petabytes of data across primary, backup, and archival storage classes. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks, David. Nice to be here.
So you are now the record holder out of all the guests I've hosted in terms of how long you spent at a time that you've personally founded. Congratulations. And what inspired you to stay for so long in that one space?
Obstinance. So I've always been big-headed.
Tell me more.
I think it has to be if you have an idea that's unusual and you want to make it successful, you gotta be big-headed.
How'd you get started? Like, how did this idea come to your mind that you wanted to solve this problem?
Yeah, this is my third startup, and I was on the board of the second startup with a co-founder of my first startup. We're both on the board of the second startup. And we were looking at and doing some investment. We had made some money in the previous companies, and we were looking at the enterprise search space. Wondering, forever people have been trying to be able to find out what's in the data of their own companies. People are used to finding everything around the world using Google, but no one knows what their own company has. Seemed like a really interesting problem to solve. And we started talking about it, and I said, well, gee, you know what? Everything that changes every day is backed up. There's a process already to identify the new stuff. And if we could index that secondary copy of data, we'd solve the problem. So that's that simple an idea. And then we'd be able to access the history of data over time, see how it changed. And there's all sorts of analysis. People don't, when you want to search enterprise data, you're not looking for the same types of things that you're looking for in user data and in enterprise data. But it seemed like it opened up a whole world of value that no one was looking at. So that's how it started. And over time, we realized that there was different values for the type of data that type of processing we do with that. But what really kicked it off is being able to index data to know that all your defenses against ransomware had failed and it had been attacked. That was you had to be able to look at full content of data and understand it in a way that no one had done before. The product incorporates machine learning. We've been trained on thousands of ransomware attacks from millions and millions of backups to date. But it was fundamentally a different type of indexing and analyzing deeply into secondary storage. So that's an example. We've done work in eDiscovery and governance, but there's a lot of value still in those copies. It is the history of your company over time. And so this use case has been very popular.
So on top of the security, like the one you already mentioned right now of cybersecurity and cyber ransomware attacks, what are some more of the other use cases that separates, in your opinion, enterprise data versus call it user behavior data?
Well, data on the internet is by definition public, right? So it's put there to be found. There's lots of sensitive data in the enterprise that you don't want to be found. That is probably there because of mismanagement and lack of knowledge, because they can't find it and can't manage it correctly. And that's become only too infamous lately, because if you start locking down and successfully preventing people from, if a customer can find that their data's been attacked and can recover from it quickly, they're not likely to pay the ransom unless the person has stolen some of that sensitive data, exfiltrated it, and is threatening to expose it. So the follow-on problem from being able to recover from a ransomware attack is to recover from the exfiltration of the data, not make sure that it has been exfiltrated along. So that's a growing value in the product today, is being able to find that data, proactively secure it, and not allow people to compromise companies when they're attacked.
And when you were first getting started, what did the MVP look like? Like, what were the features that were in the first version that you were putting out to the market?
The first version of this product, or
Correct.
The CyberSense? It hasn't changed much, except the user interface has been improving. The core of the product was to be able is very simple. It analyzes the data every day and tells you whether there's an attack. It's just a red light, green light flag. And then there's a bunch of things you can do to confirm or respond to the attack or recover. But it can tell you the information you need to know most is when is the last full backup that you can do, or last copy. Either it's backups or snapshots of data. How do you roll back to the good place as quickly as possible? Once you've been attacked, you want to get up and running as fast as possible. And so from day one, we've been able to display that kind of information, help people to get back.
And then if you go back to your first product that you created under the Index brand, what was the MVP like for that?
Well, it's full content indexing, be able to find data you're looking for. The biggest use case was eDiscovery. If you're getting sued, you want to find data or you're being compelled to find data that's responsive to the lawsuit, or people want to find sensitive data. Simple cases like Social Security numbers that shouldn't be in your data. You can find that and remediate that. That was the bread and butter for years.
And then how did you find your first 10 customers? Was it like you just going out through your network and seeing people who already had the problem? Like, did you already know people who had the problem before you built the solution?
In the early days, it was mainly marketing was generating leads that we were following up on. Also showing it at a lot of conferences that specialized in that. Remember back when people went to conferences, when people met in person.
I came back from a conference not too long ago, and I look forward to going to many more as COVID hopefully declines on the numbers. When you mentioned marketing, what marketing campaigns did you do in the early days, and how does it compare to today?
Well, we did email marketing campaigns, we did calling campaigns, all the traditional stuff, and we don't do that at all anymore. So it doesn't compare at all to today. Today, we've found that the most effective way to market is through channels. So we're 100% channel focused. So our marketing is building our relationship with channel partners. We have large OEM partners. We have resellers and ISVs. We've come to realize that what a customer wants is a totally integrated solution, and we're an important piece of it, but just a piece, and they don't want to put it together.
Yeah.
So, for instance, for the ransomware product, the ransomware integrity or data integrity product, we become part of the backup process. It's a continuous process where the data is backed up, and then we're invoked to inspect that backup copy to make sure it's clean, has not been attacked by ransomware. The data has integrity, and you want to do that when the system is when the data is locked down. So once we've inspected, we know that it's guaranteed and it can be recovered and archived, and it's good data. So the customer wants to buy a smooth process like that. So we've learned that, and we add other value beyond that with the data security capabilities and management capabilities. But it's really best to do that as one integrated backup process. That's what the customer really wants. It makes it simple. So marketing now is all building relationship with channel.
How early in your company's journey did you realize that channel partners were the way to go and that it was the area to double down on?
About halfway through. I mean, we always had the sense of it. But it's hard to give up the old way. So we for a very long time, we thought it would be important, but we were living from the early days direct sales. So it was just a few years ago that we said, forget it, and took our entire sales team and said, now you manage channel. It was a little painful, but they all went along with it, and they're doing very well.
So you've been doing channel partnerships as the primary way of generating leads for at least a few years now, right?
Yeah.
What were some of the things you'd say you've learned in the process? And what were some things you'd recommend to people who are also trying to establish channel partnerships?
We have to have a channel product, and it took us a while to get something that worked for the channel. So it has to be easy. You're asking other people to sell it for you, and they don't spend that much time on it, right? So you've got to be, and then you would think, if you haven't done it before, you would think that well, somebody else is selling it. I'm going to save money on my sales force, and no, your sales force is working harder than ever, managing their peers. They're selling to their channel peers. So it's a different type of sale. You're coaching them and encouraging them to use the product, showing them how they can create value. You're frequently attending customer presentations and on their behalf, and you've got to have the whole team focused on making those key partners successful. The most important thing is that they're successful. So it's not easier. It's just by no means is it easy, but it's a different focus and it's a different culture. But
do you remember the experience of pitching for your first channel partnership?
This is my third company. My first company was 100% OEM.
Gotcha.
So I was very familiar with the model. We didn't even have resellers. We were building an operating system for storage, and we did very well. We had over 20 major OEMs product, but so it seems like I've been doing it forever.
So I guess to someone to an audience who's trying to figure it out, what were some of the things that you learned that you think that people should know immediately about channel partnerships as something they can apply?
You've got to think about what's in it for them. Now, that's always true for sales, right?
Yeah.
If you're selling direct, what's in for them? But these are the people you're working with are representing a lot of different products. You're probably far less significant to them than you imagine, and so you have to change that. You have to make it you got to show them how they can win. You have to demonstrate it to them. It takes a long time to get so you got to make sure you got to get a small. There's always a few people in any channel partnership who are willing to go take you into a few deals, give you a chance. You got to make them successful and make them loud in their success and on that. And the product has to be, it's a channel that has to be comfortable in that. So it can't be, you have to remove as much of the complexity of the product away from it. It has to be simple. So when it installs and runs itself, that's when as we moved to the channel, we refocused our product to be that way. At least the products that were designed for the channel, much more turnkey. I mean, hardly needs a user interface at all. Just installs and sends emails and things like that. So it's important that is really, really simple.
So when you were getting into channel partnerships for index engines, did the pricing model need to change, or was it compatible with the new way of selling it?
We have some partners that are really high volume, and so we changed the model to allow them to. Normally you discount based on how much a customer is buying. We started allowing them to discount across all their customer base. We want to encourage large volume. So we get aggressive on our discounting with them, for sure. But it generated far more business than we gave up. I mean, it worked out well for us.
And how do you know at what level it made sense to like introduce that like tiering of pricing for those like super duper, super strong channel partners?
You know, being successful in the channel is really about partnering with them at the deepest level. Our customers told us where we needed to be for the most part. And so if you build a relationship enough, they're going to tell you the truth about where they need to be. It's not going to be some kind of one-sided negotiation. So it took years, but we built deep relationships that the partners tell us where we need to go to get there. And you can't do that without really trusting them. So that's the thing we have to work on.
What are some of the let's call it in the domain of building product? What were some of the strategies that you employed to stay on top of the cutting edge of cybersecurity? Because I think ransomware has been hitting like the news more than it has than ever, as far as I can tell from reading the news. Like, how do you stay on top of that on a regular basis?
I've just had some great people. I mean, I can't take credit for it. The story of how we got into the ransomware business. We had a friend of the company, one of our partners, who tossed me an article, a technical article, said, "It seems like it's in your space." And the article was about the article about how you could detect whether data was corrupted by ransomware. And I looked at it, and it said, "Well, geez, problem with this is it's really requires a really heavy-duty, high-powered, high-scalable indexing capability, which is what we've been building for a very long time. So development in our wheelhouse, number one. Number two, where you need to do this is on the backup data, because you guarantee that it has integrity, and if it doesn't, if you do that every day, you can tell from the chain, that monitoring can change one to the other, whether the attack happened. You could roll it back, and so we had been working on backup data and formats for a long time. So we had unique capabilities. So this was with us. So we had a guy who's phenomenal, who gave it to us as a Skunkworks project, and he worked on it. And we found out that it definitely did detect when there was a ransomware problem, and lots of everything else. The false positive rates were huge. So it was everything in the paper was true, but naive and simple-minded. So I guess we're going to give up. And this great guy said, "No, I think I'm going to build a machine learning model that can filter out the false positives." And he spent a year perfecting that. And so that wasn't me; it was him, and it works like a charm. And we've been building now today. And we've trained it on thousands of attacks, different attacks, and millions of backups, and it has like a 99.5% accuracy rating, and it's really good. I didn't do that. We had good people who worked on it. I just pushed the problem at the right person, and he solved it. But so I don't know. I can't take credit for much of that, except you hire good people and let them go.
So when you think about hiring good people, what is your definition of a good person, and how do you find them?
Well, it's different for what you're hiring them for. For engineers,
right.
we early on we just have the team of people, the more senior people just grill new applicants. There's kind of an air of exclusivity coming to the company. The work is very challenging, very hard, very rewarding. There's not an enormous, we're based in New Jersey, there's not an enormous amount of places to work there. And it's kind of a club that you want to get into. A lot of people saying, "Boy, that was such a difficult interview. I'm glad you accepted me. I was really challenged in the interview process." So the culture of the team evolved to be able to just have high standards and won't let anyone in unless they meet them. So that was cultural. It was just the people are accepting people like them into that. In general, That's it.
When you first started Next Engines, how big was the team and how big is it today?
We're the team was started with, well, the first year was about 4 people just trying to prove whether idea would work. Grew it to about a dozen or so for the first couple of years. Today we're hiring like a person a week. We're about 70 or 80 and growing as fast as possible.
What were some of the challenges over the years as it relates to like trying to hire at a rapid pace?
It's funny. We're doing pretty well right now.
Okay.
We are measuring. We have a bunch of recruiters pulling people in. We're running ads. We have databases. We've got feelers out in the industry, and we're getting a pretty decent set of people. And it took us about 3 months to get a process going that we could ramp up. But as I said, we're hiring maybe a person a week or something like that.
Would you happen to know what the applicant to acceptance ratio is?
No, I don't.
Okay, sounds good. I just figured I'd just throw that out there.
Better than half, maybe 3 out of 4, something like that, but I'm not sure.
Okay. And as it relates to the industry of cybersecurity, do you feel like that makes hiring harder than hiring just for like general software engineers? Or do you feel like you train in-house to the point that someone who's relatively junior in their career can adapt to the domain of cybersecurity and indexing?
Yeah, well, we will hire all aspects of people's career. It's the right person. We just hired somebody who had not a lot of experience, but his hobby was playing around with Linux. So it's an interesting hobby. So he was just the right type of person. He was very little experience, but mine was in the right place.
When I was a software engineer over at Uber, every person I worked with who had a hobby of playing around with Linux was amazingly, like, they were so incredible as engineers.
Right.
Like their quality was probably like 1 or 2 levels above whatever their title was. I'm like, shoot, these people are they just love technology. And it's just so cool to see their passion.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think cyber attacks and challenges with data indexing have been on the rise?
Well, it's bankrupt. It's where the money is. There's people retiring as billionaires after running ransomware attacks for a while. There's tremendous amount of software trying to prevent the attack from happening. That's not what we do. We come in after the attack and tell you that.
Yeah.
But because it's human beings, you can't. People will make mistakes and they'll leave. They'll think everything's locked up. I know an example where a company was really run well from a cybersecurity perspective, but it acquired another company, and a person from the other company brought their home laptop in, which was against company policy for the acquiring company. But this guy's new, and he brings his home laptop, and that's where it came in from. They have been trying to get into this company for a long time. Their corporate email systems was repelling all phishing attacks. So they got a list of interesting people's home email addresses and attacked them that way. And then somebody brought in the laptop. Boom. So it's hard, right? It's a hard problem to solve, right? I mean, you're asking people to prove a negative that there's no way to get in. I mean, so if you've read my blog post, I think you can prove negatives if you can narrow the search space down. Can I tell whether this data has been corrupted? Well, if you can show me the data and I have enough space, I can tell you it has not been corrupted. I can prove the negative. Right? But you've got to have the power to do that, and it's got to be targeted. Can I prove there's no corruption anywhere in the universe? No, I can't do that. it's a search-based problem. You need a search, you need a indexing engine with the power. Thank you, and you got to focus it on the right stuff. So, can you prove that there's no vulnerabilities in your enterprise? Well, it's a pretty big, wide surface to prove. So and you should invest as much money as you can afford stopping that. They're going to get through anyway, so that's where the insurance policy did when they do.
Why do you think companies are hesitant or negligent as it comes to indexing their own data?
People don't want to know what's in it for the most part. What good to know? So lawyers don't want to know that there's the corporate lawyer doesn't want to know there's vulnerabilities in that email that exposes them. They'd rather have that quiet. And there's a lot of information you can pick up when you do full indexing. I have lots of stories about that, and I wish I could share with you in public, maybe over beer.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they're definitely under disclosure.
But there's things that we've helped people find that they were pretty surprised about. So there's the pressure of not knowing, and then there's budgetary things. One of the things we can do is we can tell you where the data is totally rot, useless stuff, and we've demonstrated to people that we can save 50% of your storage budget on certain things because there's so much out there. Just delete it and stop it. Yeah. Whose interest is that in? If you
CFO, maybe.
What's that?
The CFO who wants to save money.
Yes, that's it. That's who you have to pitch to the CFO because everyone else wants as much budget as possible, right? So that's a CFO pitch. Now, how do you get on the CFO schedule? That's a challenge. That's a good pitch for a large company. So you gotta. There's two sides to things. What looks good to some people, saving money, and then some people like spending money.
Well, I'm assuming you've successfully reached out to CFOs, whereas I've never done that. So can you tell me how it's done?
No, it's hard. There's no. The wonderful thing about a channel. Well, today our CISOs buy us. It's hard to give them to a CISO, but I don't have to do that. So the answer is get a big channel partner to do it for you. That's what works. Okay. Get someone who has such good a relationship with the end user. If you have a product that's at the C level and you're a startup, you really need to go on the channel. That's universal truth, and that's what we're doing.
Okay. And I remember earlier you were mentioning how you have a team, and I imagine it's not you selling all these channel partners; it's your account executives, your full team at the support. What would you say is the culture at Index Engines that has these people stay for a long time to, I guess, invest into the company and to bring about these things to fruition?
I don't know. But I was interviewing somebody recently for a sales director position, and they told me, they said, "Why does everyone stay here?" It's not. I mean, I said, my current job, I was there for 3 years. That's long sales. You guys have been for a long time, and it must be doing something right. But I do. I have had people tell me that. So I don't like to micromanage. I like to define what I want to do and then go do it. And I do believe that it's better to have someone fail at a job that they control than succeed at a job they don't sometimes, because for the long-term health of the company, if they fail at a task, they'll learn and they'll get better. If they don't believe they're in control of something, and succeed in it, they won't relish that because they were just doing what they're told. So I think treating people like adults and giving them lots of responsibility as long as you define the parameters of what you're trying to go, and then going at it as a team rather than more of a hierarchical approach is better. But that's a guess. You'd have to. Maybe they just can't find another job. I don't think that's the case. They're all very good. I'm sure they can.
What is your favorite part?
Yes, it must be fun.
Fun is important. I think fun is the number one thing that drives people after once their I think basic needs are met. Like if you have fun, I think it'd be really hard for a company to pull me away from a company if I was having fun on a regular basis.
Yeah. Well, I think that's. I think the engineering team is having a lot of fun. I think the folks that are trying to. There's different types of fun. There's the fun, the active fun that you have in the job. I think there's a lot of that. Then there's a different kind of fun. There's when you are frustrating all day because of the thing, but at the end you're exhausted and you've realized accomplished something, even though the day's been really frustrating. The sense of, well, I actually did this. That could be fun. That is different kind.
I think that sense of purpose gets a lot of people through tough times, especially in the world of startups. That sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. We're doing something no one else is doing that people have said can't be done. That's also that. I mean, we don't have any real competition. There's one. Let me define myself. In-depth analysis and petabytes of data. We're gathering over 200 attributes of the data, running through a machine learning model, detecting at a very high level where the data's been corrupted. There's nobody that's doing that. It's not intuitively obvious it can be done. We're doing it for formats that people didn't think we'd ever be able to manage. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, we can do it. You don't think we can? We can do that. So there's that kind of air of cockiness in the company too.
Proving naysayers wrong is satisfying.
Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite part of the job?
Besides talking to you, David. So the favorite part of the job, I don't get to do much anymore. I love talking to customers and in person, like visiting and talking. I love, getting customers and making them happy with the product and them saying, "Hey, this is great stuff." It's very satisfying. I don't do that now. It's all on Sue.
If you don't have the opportunity to do what you enjoy the most, what motivates you to stay in that position versus shifting it towards something that makes you, I guess, happy or have as much fun as possible?
Well, it's my company, so it's not like
it is.
So it's not like I'm getting another job. So you mentioned before. Here's a huge motivator. These people staying around for a long time. They've got stock. I want them to make them successful. They've loyalty. You reward loyalty with loyalty, and I want the company to grow and be incredibly successful and make it something that everyone's very proud of. It's like a virtuous cycle.
So I have this question here that I love to ask, but I don't get the opportunity to ask it often because I think it takes a very specific person that has the level of experience to answer it with a lot of insight. And I think I would appreciate hearing your answer on it. So it goes like this. If you right now were reset to zero in the sense of no money and no connections, how would you restart your career, assuming you got warped back into the body of a 22-year-old? What would you do in today's atmosphere of however the world is?
Go back to tending bar. Let's go to that. I've done that for a while. You get out to people. I mean, it's assuming the bars are open. You find someplace the bars are open. I mean,
okay.
So I think if things implode, you just start working. I wouldn't think about it. The job is to get it. I've been there. If you were setting yourself back to those days, I was there. You get the job. I got into computers. I mean, I did not study computers as an undergraduate. I was a music major. Taught for a year, didn't like it. Started attending bar just because I wanted to do something. And then you find the next thing and start taking classes, do this, look at opportunities. It's the way it's done.
Would you still build a business like index engines, or do you think you'd go in a different direction?
No, I wouldn't build this kind of business. I would. Enterprise software companies like ours are almost all of them that have been built recently have done it through channels. I think I'd just like to try something that didn't require a channel, and that would not be this software. It would be something that would be more consumer-oriented. I think I'd like to try that, but I don't think I'm going to be doing this. I think that I've been doing this for 30 years, and the idea of starting up another company, there's an awful lot of work in those early days, an awful lot of anxiety. I'm very happy right now. Things going. Don't need to do that again. But it's a great life if anyone wants to do it.
On a related vein, what would you say is your definition of success?
Just being able to do what I'm doing. I mean, my goal was to be able to. 30 years ago, when I started my first company, my goal was to be able to support my family and work for myself and be happy, and that's it. Didn't care about money, or I just wanted to be able to be independent, run my own business, and be able to support my family. I hit that a long time ago, and I was happy, and I've been happy ever since.
Okay,
it's just now. So this is not about happiness. This is about fun. It's fun to build a company, to build products, make people like your products, to grow, to compete, to win. Those are all fun activities, but they don't make me any happier.
Insightful. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And the last question I have is, what's something you've been learning in the recent few years that you wish you knew from the beginning of your career?
Okay. You read books too late sometimes. And there's a bunch of books I've read that I wish I'd read, and then you tell your kids to read them. They say, I don't want to read that. The book that I wish I read 30 years ago, well, it wasn't written 30 years ago, but Peter Thiel's 0 to 1.
0 to 1. Yeah, I love that book.
It's unlike, everybody else is saying, if you read it, you know what it is about. It's about really coming with a unique idea.
Yeah.
The whole world is talking about, the rest of the literature is agile methods applied to building a business, and that just makes more of the same in his approach. So I think that was the most insightful book on starting business I ever had. Wish I'd read that a long time ago.
Do you have other common books that you think are really great in terms of giving you insights?
Yeah, not from a business perspective, but I said I read books all the time. She's a little smarter if I saw that with it sooner, but nothing to do with business.
The way I view business is I feel like everything in your life at some level like cross-pollinates between your personal and business life, in the sense that like I just do things for fun. Like, hey, that's inspiring. And there's probably an equivalent in the world of business. And I actually find a lot of insights from relationship books that have nothing to do with like business relationships applied to relationships at work.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, thank you for your time, Tim. I just want to give you the stage now for the people in the audience who are interested in following you along your journey or finding out more about your company or what you do. What's the best way for them to do so?
Well, on LinkedIn, I post a lot. I've blogged in the past. There's a lot of stuff there. So if you can figure out what we're doing based upon that, and connect with me through LinkedIn. That's really the best way.
Sounds good. Well, thanks again for your time, Tim. It's been a fun hour.
Thanks. Nice meeting you.